Tonight, I'm sharing 4 stalking stories that were sent to me by real people. These aren't legends or creepypastas. These happened. Story number 3. Honestly, I had to take a break halfway through writing the script. And the last story? The person who sent it to me still doesn't sleep through the night. Before we start, check your doors. Make sure they're locked, because after tonight, you're going to be checking them a lot more often. Let's begin. This story was sent to me by Sarah. She's a 26-year-old ICU nurse working in Pennsylvania. Or, she was working in Pennsylvania. She doesn't live there anymore. And after you hear this, you'll understand why. Sarah worked rotating 12-hour shifts at a hospital. 3 days on, 2 days off, night shifts 1 week, day shifts the next. If you know any nurses, you know that schedule destroys your sleep cycle. You're basically a zombie half the time. Last March, Sarah started noticing small things going wrong around her house. Little things that, on their own, didn't mean much. Her porch light would burn out. Except it wasn't burned out. Someone had unscrewed the bulb just enough that it wouldn't turn on. She'd tighten it, and 2 days later, same thing. Her mailbox flag would be flipped up like she had outgoing mail, but she hadn't touched it. She checked her mail every few days, nothing unusual, but that flag kept getting raised. Then her Ring doorbell camera stopped sending her notifications. She checked the app. Motion alerts were turned off, but she never touched the settings. She turned them back on. 3 days later, disabled again. Sarah told herself she was being paranoid. She was exhausted, working 12-hour shifts, barely sleeping. Maybe she had touched the settings and forgot. Maybe the mailbox flag was just loose. But then, the notes started. The first one appeared on a Thursday morning. Sarah got home from a night shift at 3:47 a.m., her usual time. She was so tired she barely noticed anything as she walked to her car after her shift, drove home, parked in the driveway. When she woke up that afternoon and went to her car to grab something, there was a piece of paper tucked under her windshield wiper. It was printed on plain white printer paper, not handwritten, printed in a standard font. Times New Roman, size 12. All it said was, 3:47 a.m. looks good on you. Sarah's stomach dropped. That was the exact time she'd pulled into her driveway. Not 3:45, not 3:50. 3:47. She looked around her street. Nothing unusual. A few cars parked on the curb, but they belonged to neighbors. No one watching, no one around. She took the note inside, locked her doors, and tried to convince herself it was a weird prank. Maybe a neighbor with too much time on their hands saw her come home and thought it would be funny. But it wasn't funny, and it kept happening. The next note appeared 4 days later, after another night shift. You forgot to lock your back door on Tuesday. She had forgotten to lock her back door on Tuesday. She'd been so exhausted after her shift, she'd gone straight to bed. She woke up 6 hours later and realized the door was unlocked. But how did he know? Sarah called the police. She showed them the notes, explained the porch light, the mailbox, the camera settings. The officer was polite, took a report, said they'd increase patrols in her neighborhood. For about a week, she didn't get any more notes. She started to relax. Maybe the increased police presence had scared him off. Then she came home from a day shift at 7:38 p.m. Another note. I missed you this morning. Night shifts are better. Whoever this was knew her schedule, not just when she came home, but whether she was working days or nights. Sarah stopped sleeping. She installed 2 more cameras. She asked her neighbors if they'd seen anyone near her car. Nobody had seen anything. The notes kept coming, always printed, always tucked under her windshield wiper, always after she'd been gone for 12 hours. You look tired. You should rest more. New scrubs? Blue is your color. I like when you leave your hair down. By this point, Sarah wasn't just scared. She was being destroyed mentally. She couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. She'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, listening for footsteps, imagining someone standing outside her window. The police couldn't do anything. No threats had been made, no physical contact, just notes. Creepy notes, sure, but not illegal. Sarah bought a gun, started parking in different spots, changed her route home. Nothing helped. Then, 3 weeks after the first note, she came home from a night shift at 3:47 a.m., her usual time. She pulled into the driveway, exhausted, barely keeping her eyes open. There was a note on her windshield. She didn't even want to read it. Her hands were shaking as she pulled it out from under the wiper. It said, "See you tomorrow at 3:47. Sarah didn't go inside. She got back in her car, drove to her parents' house 2 hours away, and called the hospital from their driveway. She quit over the phone, gave 2 weeks' notice via email, never went back to that house except with her dad and 2 of his friends to pack her stuff in broad daylight. She moved 400 miles away to North Carolina. New apartment, new hospital, new phone number. She didn't tell anyone from her old town where she went, not even most of her coworkers. That was 8 months ago. She still checks every lock 3 times before bed. She parks in a different spot every single day. Her Ring camera is on 24/7, and she gets every notification. And she's never seen another note. But here's the thing that still haunts her. When she finally went back to pack up her house with her dad, they checked her Ring camera footage from the weeks the notes appeared. The camera did catch something. Every time a note was left, there was a 14-second gap where the feed cut out, just static, and then came back. Like someone knew exactly how to disable it temporarily. Sarah sent me this story 3 weeks ago. At the end of her email, she said, "I don't know who he was. I don't know how he knew my schedule. And I don't know if he's still looking for me. If you're watching this, Sarah, I hope you're safe." This story comes from Marcus, a 34-year-old software engineer in Oregon. Marcus is married, has a 6-year-old daughter, and by all accounts, lives a pretty normal life. He works from home most of the time. His wife Jennifer is a teacher. In September of last year, Marcus had to fly to Chicago for a week-long tech conference. It was his first work trip in over a year. Jennifer stayed home with their daughter. Everything was fine for the first 3 days. Marcus would FaceTime his family every night before bed, check in during the day. Normal stuff. On the 4th night, Thursday, September 21st, Marcus went to bed around 11:30 p.m. Chicago time. That's 9:30 p.m. in Oregon, so Jennifer was still awake. His phone was on Do Not Disturb, like it always was when he slept. At 2:14 a.m. Oregon time, 4:14 a.m. Chicago time, Jennifer was asleep in their bedroom. Their daughter was asleep down the hall. Jennifer's phone buzzed. She woke up and checked it, groggy. It was a text from Marcus. It said, "Look behind the couch." Jennifer stared at the message. Her brain wasn't working yet. Why would Marcus text her that? And why in the middle of the night? She texted back, "What? It's 2 a.m., babe." No response. She called him, straight to voicemail. His phone was off or on Do Not Disturb. Now she was awake, heart pounding. She got out of bed, walked to the living room, turned on every light. Their couch was against the wall, about 6 inches of space behind it. She leaned over, nothing there, just dust and a hair tie. Her phone buzzed again, another text from Marcus. "Warmer." Jennifer's blood went cold. This wasn't Marcus. This was someone in her house. She grabbed their loaded handgun from the bedroom safe, something Marcus insisted they keep after their house was broken into 3 years earlier. She didn't even put shoes on. She picked up their daughter from her room, ran out the front door in pajamas, and sprinted barefoot to their neighbor's house. She pounded on the door. The neighbors, an older couple, the Hendersons, let her in immediately. Jennifer was hysterical, shaking, barely able to explain what happened. Mr. Henderson called 911. Jennifer tried calling Marcus again. Still no answer. The police arrived in 6 minutes. 4 officers. They swept the entire house, every room, every closet, the garage, the backyard. Nothing. They checked doors and windows. Everything was locked from the inside. One officer asked to see the text messages. Jennifer showed him. The texts were definitely from Marcus's number, but when they called Marcus's phone, it rang in the hotel room in Chicago. Marcus finally woke up, confused and terrified. He checked his phone. No sent messages. No outgoing texts at 2:14 a.m. or 2:18 a.m. His phone had been on Do Not Disturb the entire time. The officers stayed at the house until 4:30 a.m. They didn't find anything. No signs of forced entry, no one hiding. They told Jennifer it was probably a spoofing app. Someone faked Marcus's number as a prank, but that didn't explain Warmer. Jennifer stayed at the Hendersons' house that night. Marcus booked the first flight home the next morning, canceled the rest of his conference, didn't care. When he got home Friday afternoon, they went through the house together. Still nothing. Then Marcus remembered something. He went up to the attic, a small, unfinished space they barely used. The access hatch was in the hallway ceiling. You needed a ladder to reach it. The hatch was closed. But when Marcus climbed up and opened it, there was a sleeping bag, a burner phone, granola bar wrappers, empty water bottles, and a printed list, typed, not handwritten, of Marcus's email address, his iCloud password, his two-factor authentication backup codes, and his phone number. Someone had been living in their attic. The police came back. They dusted for prints, found a match in the system. A 29-year-old man named Eric Peluso, who had prior arrests for trespassing and identity theft in California. Detectives figured out what happened. Eric had broken in while Marcus and Jennifer were at Jennifer's parents' house 2 weeks earlier. They'd gone for Labor Day weekend. He'd hidden in the attic, came down at night to use the bathroom and eat food from their pantry. He'd been living there for 9 days. During that time, he'd accessed Marcus's laptop, which Marcus often left open on the kitchen counter, and found his iCloud credentials saved in a notes app. From there, Eric logged into Marcus's iCloud account on the burner phone, synced his messages, and sent the texts from inside the attic while Jennifer was asleep downstairs. The Warmer text was sent after Jennifer left the living room and walked toward the hallway. Eric could hear her footsteps. He was directly above her. Distant thunder. Eric Peluso was arrested 4 days later at a motel in Washington State. He's currently awaiting trial on charges of burglary, stalking, and identity theft. Marcus and Jennifer moved out of that house 2 months later. They couldn't stay there. Every creak, every sound in the night, they'd imagine someone in the attic. Their daughter still doesn't know what really happened. They told her there was a problem with the house, and they needed to move. She's 6. She doesn't need to know that a stranger watched her sleep for over a week. Marcus sent me this story with one message at the end. Check your attic. Check your crawl spaces. We thought we were safe because the doors were locked. We were wrong. If that last story made you uneasy, this one's worse. And I say that with complete honesty. This is the story I mentioned at the beginning, the one I had to take a break from. This comes from Emma and Troy, a couple in their early 30s who bought their first house together in August of 2022. It was a fixer-upper in rural Washington State, an old farmhouse built in the 1960s, lots of character, needed work, but had good bones. The previous owner was an elderly woman named Margaret Drummond. She'd lived there for 40 years, raised 2 sons in that house. One son, Kyle, had moved to Arizona in 2017, according to Margaret. The other son, David, died in a car accident in 2015. Margaret passed away in early 2022. The house went to Kyle, who sold it to Emma and Troy without ever visiting. Everything was done remotely through a realtor. Emma and Troy moved in September 1st. For the first few weeks, everything was normal. They were painting, renovating, pulling up old carpet, typical new homeowner stuff. Then in late September, they started hearing sounds at night. Footsteps, but not footsteps on the floor, footsteps inside the walls. It always happened between 2 and 3 a.m. Emma would wake up first, nudge Troy. They'd lie there in the dark, listening. 3 slow steps. It sounded like someone walking slowly through the wall cavity between their bedroom and the hallway. The footsteps would start near the closet, move toward the door, then stop. Troy thought it was pipes expanding and contracting. Old houses make noise. Emma thought it was rats in the walls. Neither explanation felt quite right, but they didn't have a better one. In early October, they called an exterminator. The guy spent 2 hours checking the crawl space, the attic, the walls. No droppings, no nests, no entry holes, no signs of rats, squirrels, raccoons, nothing. The exterminator told them it was probably the house settling or the heating system. Offered to set traps anyway, just in case. Troy declined. The footsteps continued, every single night. Always the same pattern, always between 2 and 3 a.m. Emma stopped sleeping through the night. She'd lie awake, staring at the wall, waiting for it. Troy started sleeping with headphones in, listening to white noise. He couldn't take it anymore. By mid-October, they'd almost gotten used to it. It was creepy, sure, but it wasn't hurting them. Just footsteps, probably the house settling after all. Then on October 23rd, the power went out. A windstorm knocked out electricity to their whole area around 1:30 a.m. Emma and Troy woke up to complete darkness. No streetlights, no neighbors' lights, rural area, no light pollution, just black. They lay there in bed, waiting for their eyes to adjust. Troy grabbed his phone for the flashlight, but the battery was dead. Emma's phone was charging in the kitchen, and then they heard it, the footsteps. But this time, they also heard breathing, heavy breathing, right behind the drywall, right next to their bed. Emma screamed. Troy jumped out of bed, ran to the kitchen, grabbed Emma's phone. They both stood in the hallway, shaking, flashlight pointed at the bedroom wall. The breathing stopped. The footsteps stopped. Troy didn't even think. He was running on pure adrenaline. He went to the garage, grabbed a hammer, came back, and started smashing the drywall. Emma was crying, telling him to stop, to just call the police. But Troy wasn't listening. He ripped a hole in the wall, shined the flashlight inside. There was a crawl space behind the wall, about 3 feet wide, running the length of the bedroom, and inside the crawl space. There was an air mattress, blankets, a camping lantern, empty water bottles, protein bar wrappers, and Polaroid photos, dozens of them, scattered on the floor. Photos of Emma and Troy sleeping, taken from inside the bedroom, different nights, different angles. Emma on her side, Troy on his back, both of them asleep. There was a small hole in the drywall near the floor, maybe the size of a quarter, covered with a piece of dark fabric on their side. Invisible unless you were looking for it. That's where the photos were taken from. Troy pulled out more of the drywall. The crawl space led to the closet. There was a small panel in the back of the closet, hidden behind old coats Margaret had left behind. The panel opened into the crawl space. Someone had been living in the walls, coming out at night while they slept, watching them. Emma and Troy ran outside, called 911 from the driveway. They didn't go back in the house. They sat in their car with the doors locked until the police arrived. Officers searched the crawl space. No one was there right then, but they found everything Emma and Troy had described. Plus one more thing, a driver's license. Kyle Drummond, Margaret's son, the one who supposedly moved to Arizona in 2017. He'd never left. He'd been living in the walls of his childhood home for 5 years. When his mother got too old and moved to a nursing home in 2021, he stayed. When she died and the house sold, he still stayed. Police found him 3 days later, hiding in a storage unit he'd rented in town. He'd been coming and going from the house through a basement window they didn't know was accessible from outside, hidden behind overgrown bushes. Kyle is currently in a psychiatric facility awaiting trial. He told police he didn't want to leave the house because it was where he felt safe. Emma and Troy moved out immediately. They broke their mortgage, sold the house at a loss 6 months later, and moved to an apartment in Seattle. They will never own a house again. Emma sent me this story with a single sentence at the end. I still feel like I'm being watched when I sleep. Check your walls. Check behind your closets. And if you hear footsteps at night, don't assume it's the house settling. This last story is different. It doesn't involve a house. It doesn't involve physical stalking, at least not at first. But it's the reason the person who sent it to me doesn't stream anymore. And after you hear it, you'll understand why. This comes from someone who asked me to call her Jess, not her real name. Jess is 24, lives in Texas, and used to be a Twitch streamer. She wasn't big, about 70, 80 average viewers per stream. She played indie horror games, chatted with her community, had a small but loyal audience. Streaming was something she did for fun a few nights a week after her day job. In June of last year, Jess was streaming a game called Iron Lung, a short horror game about piloting a submarine. It was around 11 p.m., about 90 people watching. A new account joined the chat. The username was "You left your blinds open left window." Jess saw it in the chat and laughed it off. Weird username, but Twitch has plenty of weird usernames. She didn't think much of it. Then her chat started spamming. "Jess, check your chat, and WTF is this?" Someone had posted a message before the moderators could delete it with Jess's full real name, her home address, and a link to her Instagram account that she kept private. Jess's heart stopped. She ended the stream immediately. Her hands were shaking. She checked her window blinds. The left window in her streaming room, the one behind her desk, was open about 2 inches. She always kept it cracked for airflow. She yanked the blinds closed, locked the window, and sat there in the dark, trying to process what just happened. Her phone buzzed. A Twitch notification. "You left your blinds open." Left Window had just gifted 100 subs to her channel. The gift message said, "That's better. Good night." Jess didn't sleep that night. She reported the account to Twitch, got it banned within an hour. She filed a police report the next morning. The officer told her the same thing you always hear. We can't do much unless they make a physical threat. For 2 weeks, Jess didn't stream. She kept every blind in her apartment closed. She checked her locks obsessively. She started parking in a different spot every day. Eventually, she convinced herself it was over. The account was banned. Whoever it was had moved on. On July 10th, she went live again. Different game, different time. She streamed at 3 p.m. instead of her usual 10 p.m. slot, thinking it would throw off anyone watching. Within 5 minutes of going live, a new account joined. "I know you moved your desk." She had moved her desk 2 days earlier. She'd rearranged her entire room, put her desk against a different wall with no windows behind it. The account didn't say anything in chat, just sat there, watching. Jess ended the stream, reported the account, banned. She moved her streaming setup to a completely different room. Her living room, no windows, camera facing a blank wall. She didn't tell anyone. Didn't tweet about it, didn't post about it. On July 18th, she streamed again. New room, new setup. She felt safe. 3 minutes in, a new account joined. Nice new room. Jess lost it. She started crying on stream. Her chat was confused, asking what was wrong. She ended the stream, didn't explain. That night, she got a DM on Instagram, her private Instagram that only close friends followed. The message was from a blank account, no profile picture, no followers. It said, "You're prettier when you're scared." Jess called the police again, filed another report. This time, they took it more seriously. Assigned a detective, tried to trace the accounts. All of them were created with VPNs, burner emails, fake info, dead ends. In August, Jess moved to a new apartment across town. She didn't post about it. Didn't tell most of her friends. She figured if she just stopped streaming, stopped being visible online, it would stop. She stayed offline for 6 weeks. No Twitch, no Instagram posts, radio silence. On September 22nd, she decided to try one more time. She missed streaming, missed her community. She went live for the first time in over a month, convinced that whoever was stalking her had given up. Her viewer count climbed. 60 viewers, 70, 85. And then, 2 minutes into the stream, a new account joined. Still watching. The account didn't say anything, didn't post in chat, just watched. Jess looked directly into the camera and said, "Whoever you are, please, just leave me alone." The account left the stream. 10 seconds later, it gifted 200 subs. The message said, "Okay, but I'll miss you." That was the last time Jess streamed. That was 4 months ago. She sent me this story 3 weeks ago. In her email, she said, "I still get notifications sometimes, new accounts following me on Instagram, friend requests from blank profiles. I don't know who he is. I don't know how he keeps finding me. I just want it to stop." Jess deleted her Twitch channel, privated her Instagram. She still works her day job, but she doesn't go out much. She's afraid that if she's too visible, too public, he'll find her again. And the worst part? She doesn't even know if it's one person or multiple people. She doesn't know if he lives in her city, her state, or halfway across the country. She just knows he's watching. That's all 4 stories. 4 real people. 4 real experiences. If you heard something in your house while watching this, you're probably fine. Probably. But maybe check your locks tonight. Check your blinds. Look behind your couch. And if you're a content creator, a streamer, a YouTuber, anyone with an online presence, remember that the people watching aren't always who they seem. Stay safe out there. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If this video creeped you out, I have an entire playlist of stories just like these, link in the description. And if you have your own story you'd like to share, my email is in the description below. Stay safe, lock your doors, and whatever you do, don't look behind the couch.